First and foremost, I want to thank everybody that has signed up for the Patreon program. That's an incredible platform, and I'm so, so appreciative of you guys that have done that for me. It starts at $3, goes all the way up to $100. You can pick different tiers of sponsorship or monthly contribution. You get different privileges for each tier. I've uploaded a lot of content on there, and I plan on uploading a lot more every single day, at least content. I understand that people want stories more. That's like really what people want. If you sign up for that, you get to the stories before YouTube, etc., etc. But I'm going to start doing more stories. I mean, I have a lot, and I want to start new series. Like, this is probably going to be the last marriage series, and then we're going to go into my second time in federal prison, which is pretty interesting. And then my third term was very interesting. That's like probably one of the most interesting periods of prison that I've done. I also want to do a series called Psychedelics that focuses primarily on my experience with hallucinogenic drugs. My wife was telling me that the other day. She's like, you have so many really wild psychedelic experiences and people seem to like them. You should focus more on that instead of your crack smoking. She's like, as impressive as it was, it's, some people want a little more feel-good stories, getting butt-fucked ayahuasca in the fields of Argentina 3 times last February. I want to talk about it, dude. So what? No, but I want to do a psychedelic series. I want to do juvenile delinquency. I want to finish that. I want to do the how to turn your life into a novel, screenplay, all that stuff. I really like Patreon just because I can put what I want on there and I'm not in bondage to some arbitrary censorship, I can say what I want. It doesn't matter. And it seems like everyone on there except for one person is supportive of me. And, if you're not happy with the service that I'm giving you, then just tell me and I'll refund you. No problem. I'll always refund you. If you ever give me money and you think I'm not holding up my end of the bargain, whether it be a book or anything that I've made a mistake on, email me, say refund. It will happen instantly. I promise you that. I will gladly give you your $3 back, bro. So, just so you know. And what else do I want to say? So Narcan, I just got another 40 of these. It's getting really, really, really difficult because so many people are emailing me. This is Narcan nasal. It has 2 doses in it. Generally, they're like 100 and 150. So I want to start a nonprofit called the Paul Project. I don't want to be in charge of it. I'm too busy with other stuff to really, really, really take control over it. So Paul's widow, his fiancé that he was with for 8 years, love of his life. She's a great person, one of my best friends. She's an accountant. I want her to be in charge of the financial side of it. I want to sign up for nonprofit status, and I want to send every single person, at least that subscribes to me, if you ask for this, if you've been a heroin addict, if you've been addicted to any opioid, even if you're clean now, you should have this in your home, just like I do. I have this in my house, in my car, and I'm down to send it to you guys for free. Even right now, out of pocket, without the nonprofit stuff. But I really want to start a nonprofit. If you guys want to be involved with the nonprofit side of it, Sam, Annette, over in Canada, sounds like you have access to Narcan too. If you're in other parts of the world or country and you have access to it, we get it for free here. I'm glad to send it to you domestically. International, it's like $20 to send anything international. And that gets a little pricey. That's why I want to start the nonprofit. So what I'm doing, I don't have it ready yet, but when I do, I'll launch it. I want to start a GoFundMe to get the 502c status, to get the nonprofit going. And what I'm going to do is I'm getting 100 snake ordinance blotter sheets made. My best friend Jeff did a badass new design for the snake ordinance. I'll make it the thumbnail of this video. I'm selling them for $100 a piece, but it's not going to me. It's going to the nonprofit. I'll probably make Paul's ex the benefactor of it because she's an accountant and because she's fiscally responsible. Unlike, I'm just so disorganized. As good of intentions as I have, I'm just not very organized, But this is something I really want to do. I want to call it the Paul Project or Project Paul, whatever it's going to be called. And I want to raise money, and I want some of you guys to volunteer to help me with this. Whether it's me sending you a box of Narcan, and we have prepaid shipping, let's just try to get it to everybody in everybody's hand. And it's not because I'm like some great guy or that's not what it's for. It's one of my closest friends died in November. It like it literally shattered my heart. Like I'm not like a big crier. Not saying I haven't cried. I've cried a lot in my life. The older I get, the more jaded I get, the more calloused I get. The ability for actual tears to come out seems every year to be less and less. I'm more and more numb just by life experiences. Butt fucking conga lines, sex riots. Shooting crystal meth and having porn collages up, and but really like seeing people die in my arms from overdoses, seeing people get stabbed in prison. Did I say butt fucking conga lines? I've been through some things that have made it very hard for me to cry. It's just like I'm just like my pain threshold was crossed at some point. It's very hard for me to show emotions in certain times. But say this, Paul died, and I cry pretty frequently over it. Randomly, like I'll be driving and it'll just hit me that he died, and like I'll want to call him and I can't. And you can go your entire life, you'll probably have one or two like really close friends, maybe three if you're lucky. And he was one of those people. He was my inner circle. He's irreplaceable. I'll never get him back. So I want to send that so that doesn't, so it can save some lives. Also, I've done a lot of really bad shit in my life, and I want to, I want to repay that karmic debt. Altruism, doing nice things for other people, is a staple of any recovery model. Most religions, helping others. And I feel like every time I send one of these out, it costs me $5. Right now it's coming out of pocket. Eventually I want to get it to a point where a nonprofit's covering it, that I'm one of the founders of. But right now it's coming out of pocket. Every time I sacrifice $5. And what is that, a half a pack of fucking Newports? It's not that much, but I legitimately think that it will save somebody's life, and it's absolutely worth it. And the universe implications that doing that act of kindness will do just for me, giving me peace, making me be able to look at myself in the mirror and be okay with who I'm looking at, is invaluable. So, 8 minutes in, Jesus, get off your fucking high horse, Ryan. Jesus Christ. No, I'm not on cocaine. Alright, I'm going to put a little disclaimer, like, video starts at 8 minutes. Don't listen to all the bullshit I said before that. But anyway, moving on. So, where I left off last time, I'm with my friend JP. Now, JP, I could do an entire video series about this guy. Guy's one of the most real outlaws I've ever met in my life. I don't know if you have friends like that. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he was very sociopathic, like functionally sociopathic. Like, one of those people, if he liked you, he really liked you. But if he didn't like you, get the fuck out of that guy's way. He's going to rob you. He's going to do something to take advantage of you so that it benefits himself somehow. And he was cold, and he always stuck and lived by that code, and that's just how he was. He had talked to me after a night of smoking crack and doing heroin. And I remember, I'm already doing fentanyl patches. I'm chewing on them like bubble gum. I'm drinking very heavily, 2 fifths. I know I'm going to prison in a couple weeks, and talks me into going to the casino. I basically blow through. I think I was down to like $200, something like that. My rent was $1,300. I'm like, fuck. He's like, let's go play poker. I'm like, okay. We sign up for a list. We have a couple more drinks. They serve alcohol there. And we go play Texas Hold'em. And I'm sitting there, and him and I are kind of like, we've already talked about our strategy, how we're kind of playing, teams. If he folds, if he bets pre-flop a certain amount, I know to fold, or what we had just little, team signals worked out before we sat down on the table. I just start winning. Now, poker's probably one of my better skills in life. I can't remember the last time I played it. It's been a long time. But, you know, I learned how to play in prison. I learned how to play when I was at Victorville. And I would play with straight street hustlers that, you know, they're from, like, seriously, like the streets of Chicago, and they're rolling dice on the sidewalk, you know, or they're from South Central LA, and they go to the casinos and, like, you know, they sell drugs, but then they go to the casinos and they've learned how to survive off poker. Now you get to prison, and what's very interesting about people like that is a lot of times that's these guys' only hustle in there. You know, like they'll have their family send them money, and they systematically play poker tournaments because they're just so good at it. And probably cost me $3,000 or $4,000 to play poker when I was in prison. But I got taught by these just straight street hustlers. I can play pinochle very well. I can play spades very well. And poker, any form of it, whether it be Omaha, Texas Hold'em, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even low ball, high ball, elevator, baseball, all the weird little games that you can play with poker, I basically gotten down, you know, just from years and years and years of playing with people that are incredibly gifted, poker prowess to the fullest. I didn't realize how good I had gotten at poker until I got out of prison. And I went to like an Indian casino, and I was just like smashing people, you know, and I wasn't like that before I went to prison. I would play like penny poker, and like, you know, by the end, I'm like, don't have money. I'm like, can I just take my pants off? And you're with like 8 guys. They're like, dude, nobody wants you to do that. Landlord's dogs. So anyway, I'd gotten good at poker, and this guy, JP, was he was the best poker player I've ever met. Now, I went to high school with a guy named Jay Farber. He got second place in the World Series of Poker. I used to play with him in high school. He got second place in like 2013. He won like $5 million. Jay Farber, I think they called him the Panda. And I remember watching that. I was like, wow, like I grew up playing poker with this guy. We'd get all wasted and like someone would have a poker night. Watching him on TV, going heads up with someone on the very final table, just him and some kids. I think like some 22-year-old kid won. He was probably like 28 at the time. And he's a very good poker player himself. So the point is I've been around good poker players, but this guy JP was the absolute best one I've ever met. You know, in high school, he would have fake IDs, and he would go play at, you know, casinos and come back with duffel bags full of cash. That's not bullshit. You know, he drove a BMW, and he sold weed and played poker, and that was it. That was how he made his money. I learned quite a bit from him as well. But I hadn't played with him since prison. So now I've been out of prison for years. He's never played with me since I've been out. And they taught me, like, aggressively how to bet pre-flop, you know, how to get people out, how to, like, you know, how to favorably get people off the table so that you're, you know, optimizing what your odds are. I learned a lot of really cold poker skills. Maybe I'll do a whole video on prison poker. That sounds like a good video. Teach you guys a lot of crazy shit I learned with poker. So I'm playing with him, and like I said, I bought him with 200. Now, generally at a casino, you know, they have the 1-2. This is what the antes are, you know, small blind, big blind. If you're small blind, you have to do 1. If you're big blind, you have to do 2. And with $200, you're not doing much. Like, I do not recommend going to one of these 1-2s with like $200. Most of these guys have like big ass stacks. Give them $200, you get like this little. It's like, damn, that's like the size of my cock when it's hard. Like, that's not going to do anything. But I played aggressively as I was taught in prison. I'm basically playing with JP as a team member. Just start smashing it. My little dick just starts growing and growing and growing until it's like, you know, if you're like, yeah, it was like this huge stack of chips. I probably went from like $200. I'm not exaggerating this. I probably went from $200 that night to $2,700 after playing for like 5 or 6 hours. The lights coming out outside, and eventually we end up walking. He had won money. I forget what he won, but I had won money. Now, as we're leaving, gets in his car, right? Because I had taken the subway down to Skid Row. I'd run into him. We get in his car, and he's one of these guys, 1 or 2 beers, and he's like slurring. You know, like, oh, dude, like, oh, can I stay at your house? Why are you talking about Pee Wee Herman, motherfucker? And like, smoke crack, and he comes out of it a little bit, but he's kind of flailing on the alcohol. He's driving like shit out of the parking lot, and a Soreño, I mean, I'm not saying it was a South Sider, but Dodgers hat, neck tattoos, you know, the wife beat, you know, it had all the signature traits of a Southsider. Dodgers, right? JP's leaving, I'm in the car, right? We're getting out of the parking lot. He cuts off this Southsider, whoever he was. Southsider flips him off. JP's like, what? Fuck you. Yeah, because he's kind of flailing on the alcohol. I'm like, whoa. I'm all cracked out. I'm like, whoa, man. I'm like, we just won all this money playing poker. Like, chill out, you know? No, fuck that. Fuck you. What's up? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm kind of like cowering down in the front seat. I'm like, dude, can you stop? I'm like rolling my window up like that's going to do something if this dude has a gun or something. We end up leaving as this guy's yelling and he pulls out. Now, I'm already paranoid because I'm smoking crack. I look in the side view mirror and I see the Mexican guy start following us. And I'm like, hey, dude, you know, I'm all cracked out. Hey, bro, I think that the Southsider is following us. He's like, fuck that fool. You know, he's saying like some racist things that I'm not going to say here. I have a half Mexican son. Can't say stuff like that. But, you know, he's calling him derogatory names that you would call a Hispanic person. Oh, fuck that. Okay, whatever. Let me get the crack pipe, you know, so I'm just like, whatever. I'm just going to get high and I'm not going to pay attention to this potentially dangerous situation. Start smoking crack, taking big old booyah blast, getting ringers, you know. He's bumping Mob Deep, and I'm going to keep going. Now, he's dropping me off in North Hollywood, Valley Village, North Hollywood area. This Mexican dude is following him, and I do not know if it's the crack or if the Mexican guy is really following him. I keep telling him, I'm like, hey, Jason, Mexican dude's still following us. He's like, dude, it's a Honda. Do you know how many Hondas Mexicans are driving in Los Angeles? Now he's like angry crack, right? And I'm like not one of those guys that smokes crack and never really gets angry. I either get paranoid, horny, or super scared. This particular instance, I'm scared. I'm scared of the Mexican guy. I'm scared of him because he's yelling and he's hit me before. Yeah, he's hit me like, I don't know if I said this in another video, but he rented me a car, and he's like, yeah, just return it next week. And I didn't. I was like, oh, cool, a rental car? I'm just not going to return this. I'm like driving around for a month, and finally I return it, and it screwed up his credit. And I remember he picked me up, and like we stopped at a red light, and he just cracked me. He's like, that's for my credit, dog. I was like, oh, please don't hit me again. And like, him yelling kind of like brought that back. He's like, whoa, fucking kill him. And so I'm scared of him, scared of the Mexican guy. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I'm just slumping down. And of course, I'm smoking more crack, which is not making the situation better at all. We finally get to my apartment in North Hollywood. Now, this is when all these years that I've done all this, I've been with him as he's robbed liquor stores. I've been with him when we've he's done home evasions. I'm like with him. I'm the Robin. I have the little Robin mask on, you know. I'm like doing weird shit with him. I mean, we have been neck and neck in the battle. Weird because his for poker, mine for heroin. And like I always felt like mine was a little more urgent, you know. I was like, fuck that. I need to come up with 300 for this poker tournament. I'm just like, yeah, I need to come up with 300 so I don't accidentally shit when I fart, you know. And he never understood that, but now he's a heroin addict too. So in all the years that I knew him, he never really told me his background story. And I've gone into it before. I go into it in the Baker Brothers story about when I had the key and the gun in the trunk and I was with Black Chris. But he starts telling me about his story, right? And so JP's telling me how his dad was a degenerate gambler. ran out on the family when he was like 6, and like his whole life, his mom was always talking about what a gambling junkie his dad was. So what happens? JP gets the bug. They don't have a lot of money, you know. It's a single mom. They're living in like an apartment somewhere, like in Santa Barbara. And when JP gets old enough, he starts hanging out with the in crowd. Now, Santa Barbara is an upper class town, so you know, the popular people in that town have money, and it's just how it is. You know, it's like the jocks, but they have money, or like skaters that are really rich and they don't even skate. They just like go to Pacific Sunwear, and they're like, their friends, like, you know, they watch skate videos, but they like can't skateboard. And those are like the popular people in high school. Well, he gravitated towards those people that had more money than him, but because his mom didn't have money, he had to figure out a way to fit in, because they would like all be going snowboarding, or they would be going to a concert. You know, this when they're like 13, 14, 15, all through high school. So we're cracked out, and he's starts telling me about all this stuff. Now, remember, I am super scared, I'm super paranoid, and I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and there's a car behind us with the lights flashing. Like when emergency lights are on, you know, it has the blinkers on. So the headlights aren't on, but you can see the red flashing. So they have the hazard lights on. Maybe like a half a block. Now, I'm convinced it's the Mexican. JP's like, every fucking Honda in LA is driven by a Mexican. I'm like, what does that even mean? What do you mean? And, you know, so I'm on this trip. I'm kind of listening to him, and he's telling me about how he'd be so embarrassed growing up because everybody had money and his family didn't. And he couldn't afford to do all these cool things. You know, like, they'd all have brand new surfboards that they would get for Christmas from their family. But, like, he could never afford that, you know? His mom would get him, like, a $20 gift card to, like, Borders bookstore. And he'd, like, you know, probably trade that to play a blackjack hand or whatever it was. Probably scratcher tickets or something. So he's, like, telling me this, like, super sad story. And as paranoid and scared as I am, I'm, like, I'm kind of getting into the story. So I kind of just sit back and listen. And he tells me how eventually he starts getting into selling weight of bud. And that's how I knew him. I mean, he was like a senior when I was a freshman, and he would get pounds of weed. You know, back then, like a top shelf pound of bud, this is like 01, 02 in California, was probably like, you know, between 3,800 to 4,800. I mean, at a certain point, at like when medicinal marijuana came in, some of those like top strains at that time, like the OG Kush, stuff that's not that, I mean, it's whatever now, it's so competitive. You know, like, a strain that's really popular right now is wedding cake, you know? Like, something like that now, it's like top shelf, AAA, light dep, probably went for like 4,600 back then. So he's paying a lot of money for this pound, and he was getting it on credit, and what he would do is break the pound into grams. And he'd sell them for $20 a gram. All day. I mean, you make a lot of money off a pound of weed. I got this other phone, I was gonna like calculate it. I mean, if you're, you know, what is a pound? It's like 400 and something grams. You're selling each one of them for $20, and he wouldn't be like, okay, well, this is an eighth, you get a price break. $20 a gram. You want 3 grams, $60. It was like, you know, that kind of shit. Start making money. He was driving a BMW. I never knew this stuff when I was growing up. I just thought he was like cool senior that drove a Beamer, and he always had like the best looking girls, and like that was it. I didn't really know his backstory. I didn't know that, you know, he was basically, his mom wasn't providing, so he just took things into his own hand. And he was always a good dude, like where he'd break off his mom, his sister, whatever. At least that's what he told me. Who knows if that's true? But I mean, he passed away. I'm just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Because he was my friend, you know, and we were close for a long time. It's super sad to find out that he died recently. But anyhow, you know, he was driving a Beamer, selling weed, and then eventually we reconnected later in life because he got kind of ostracized by that upper echelon social structure that he was in the upper echelon social stratosphere, and he kind of got ostracized, alienated, because they went on to like private colleges and like, you know, would wear like sweaters around their neck, and he's like, had nowhere to go. I mean, he's just basically stays in Santa Barbara. And like I said, number one love in life is number one love in life is poker. Number two is Mobb Deep. I don't think I've ever heard him listen to anything but Mobb Deep. So poker, Mobb Deep, and surfing. Those are his three like loves. He didn't give a shit about anything but that. Actually, I think he likes stealing. We'll say that that's like a number four. And you know, when I met him, he was just going around to this place called the Coral Casino, and he was breaking, like, he'd go in there and look normal because he was very clean cut, and he would just open every locker and steal people's wallets. I mean, sociopathic shit like that, you know, and he didn't really have a conscience. I always felt bad about stealing from individuals, a lot worse than I did, like, from, like, say, like, shoplifting from some corporate store. But he just didn't care. I mean, it was whatever. Like, if they had more money than him, he was the enemy, you know, they were the enemy. So he reconnected with me at a certain point because I was kind of, you know, my moral compass was a little skewed because I was shooting speedballs all the time. He knew that. He thought I was just some crazy little fucking kid that would kind of just like do anything because I had a habit to support. And so did he. But his, like I said, was poker. So we reconnected. I started selling coke for him. And then eventually I meet him. And he's telling me his whole background story. And we're just sitting in front of my apartment. There's this Honda half a block away with blinking lights. I'm convinced it's the south side from the casino, from the Commerce Casino. And, you know, we talk. He's all cracked out telling me his, like, life story. And I'm like, all right, man, well, I got to go. You know, I have more than enough to pay rent now. I'm stoked. I saved the day playing poker, pretty much just, like, teaming up with him. Down to $200. That's how much we had blown at that casino. And, like, thankfully I still had the money. So I end up leaving. And he takes off, you know, and like as I'm walking up to my house, the apartment, I start getting very panicked because I'm looking at this car that got the hazard lights on, and I'm thinking, Jesus, like, what if that is the Southsider from the casino? So I'm like, I see them, and he leaves. He's like, as he's leaving, that car takes off and starts following him. We had exchanged phone numbers, so I'm like, I mean, if you ever smoke crack, you already know how paranoid I am at this point. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to be killed, you know? And you know how it is when you're like smoking crack and you're looking out the window and you're just staring, like just in silence, like stare out the window, or like sometimes you look in the peephole and you can like see these like weird mirages of movement that like are in the light, and you get these obsessive, you know, thought track where you know somebody's after you, but it's faceless. You don't know if it's cops. You don't know if it's like someone trying to rob you. You don't know what it is. And sometimes when I'm in these weird, manic, crack, coke, or meth psychosis, you're like hypnotized by the psychosis, right? You just can't stop staring. You're like, oh. You almost wish that there actually is a cop. You almost wish that there actually is someone trying to rob you. Just so that you feel a little less crazy. You know, because you're talking about like hours, and like, you know, like, and if someone's not on the same wavelength psychosis-wise, and like they come, say like you're at a motel and you're staring out the blinds, and they come into the room and you don't even stop because you're so hypnotized by this obsessive shit, you know, they'll be like, dude, can you not do that? Like, that's killing my high. And you're like, and you just can't stop. And, you know, I mean, I've been like on my stomach looking at, you know, under the crack of the door or whatever. I see this car follow JP, and I'm honestly thinking that it's the Southsider. And I call him, it's going straight to voicemail. And I'm like trying to warn him. I'm like, JP, the Mexican found you, you know? And this is what I'm like convinced of this shit. After he doesn't pick up a few times and he's not returning my text, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to sleep. Go home, take some Xanax, go to sleep, right? Next day, well, I mean, you know, I don't remember exactly what happened when I got home, but I'm sure my ex-wife was like, this 7:30 in the morning, you are such a drug addict. Oh my god, I just can't. Oh my god, it's light outside, isn't it? I'm like, okay. I have Coke. Ah, okay. Fucking whore. So anyway, whatever had happened with her, I'm sure we got in some sort of tiff or whatever. But the following morning, I get a phone call. This is bizarre, right? I get a phone call, and it's somebody from a hospital in LA. They're like, is this Mr. Leone? And I'm like, it's Leone, but yes, it's Ryan Leone. Hello. Do you know Jason Penguin? And I'm like, yes. You know, and like, look, smoking crack the night before, that psychosis, that paranoia, that fear, it dissipates. You know, when you're not on the crack anymore, it's kind of weird, you know? It's like jerking off on crystal meth for hours and hours and hours, and like, you don't want to come, because when you come, like, that obsessive hypnotization goes away. So like, you'll get like right about to do it, and you'll be like, oh, you like flip the page of the porno, or you like click to a new video or whatever, and you're like, it's like some weird game you're playing with yourself. You're like, oh, I'm not gonna come, even though, like, what's the point of jerking off then, you know? But then you come, and it's like instantly you're out of that weird shit, and then you kind of feel weird about it. Oh my god. That was like 5 or 6 hours of masturbating. That's not normal. It's kind of like that with the paranoia stuff, you know? It's like, when you come out of it, you're not, I mean, you put so much energy into this fear, and then you aren't on crack anymore, so you're like, it's kind of embarrassing that I was acting that way. So I'm like, yeah, this is Ryan. What's up with Jason? And she's like, he was shot. And I'm like, what? One of those few times, I mean, a couple times I've been looking out the window, and like that, like I'm at some trap house, and like it gets raided, and I'm like, I knew it. This was one of those weird instances where like my paranoia just like, you know, manifested, and I'm like, was it by a Mexican guy? And she's like, sir, you were his emergency contact, which is like, that's very, very weird to me. Like, why was I? This is a guy that I hadn't seen in years. I met him on Skid Row. Why am I his emergency contact? For whatever reason, I'm the person they called. Maybe it was because I text messaged him, and they just like hit up the last person's phone. Who knows? I don't even think they can do that. For whatever reason, they contacted me, and they're like, yes, he was shot. And I was like, I'm serious. I was like, was it a Mexican? They're like, I don't know. Can you come here? And I'm like, well, I mean, what do you mean shot? Like, is he alive? And they're like, yeah, he's alive. But, I'm like, well, where was he shot? They're like, in the face. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you serious? I'm like, oh my God, I'll be right there. So I'm like, you know, my wife like, who is that? A drug dealer. I'm like, shut up, bitch. My friend got shot in the face. She's like, oh, that is such bullshit. I hate being married to a writer. You just come up with the fucking wildest story. I'm like, listen, I just got a call from the hospital. He got shot in the face. Why would I make that up? That's outrageous. What an audacious lie for me to make up. I mean, I could make up something that's way more believable than that. She's like, so I'm like leaving, and I'm just like going to the hospital. He ends up calling me. And JP's like, he's like, hey man, I'm like, dude, are you okay? What's up? You got shot in the face? He's like, yeah, I got shot in the face. I was like, was it the Mexican? He's like, yeah, the white Honda. I'm like, I knew it. I fucking knew it. Which, let me tell you something. If you get really paranoid on crack or meth, looking out the window, house gets raided, Mexican guy in a Honda's chasing you, and then ends up shooting your friend in the face. Whenever stuff like that happens, the next time that you're in some weird paranoid fit, it is exasperated by like the millionth degree. I don't know, did I say that word right? Did I say that wrong? You gotta remember, like, a lot of my vocabulary is from reading in prison and then looking up the word and being like, oh, that's what exasperated means. I'm gonna say that so that I sound condescending to people now. I mean, that's not it, but like sometimes I don't know the pronunciation. Anyhow, you know, I was tripping that this Mexican dude was gonna do something, and he actually did. Jason, I'm like, can I do anything? He's like, dude, fuck, man, can you bring me some bagels? I'm like, whatever, you know, whatever you need. I think so I go and I got him some bagels and some coffee and stuff, and he ends up calling me back, and he's like, I mean, it was at a hospital that was pretty far away, and I had gone to get him food. I'm pretty sure it was bagels and coffee. And he called me back, and he's like, hey man, like I'm getting out of here. I'm like, what do you mean? I thought you got shot in the face. Like, are you admitted to it? He's like, nah. He's like, the side view mirror saved me. It just was like, it grazed him, and it was just like a superficial wound, Because when he said shot in the face, I thought that it was going to be one of those things where I went and like what used to be his face was just reduced to some pulp, and it was the kind of thing where like I wouldn't like make eye contact because I just couldn't look at the grotesqueness of my friend whose face is now missing because he had road rage at the Commerce. But yeah, anyhow, that really happened, and it was really, really wild. So I didn't end up seeing him. It was on the news. He posted on Facebook a picture of it. On Patreon, I'll post a picture of him shot in the face. His actual Facebook post from this crazy, crazy shit. So now I had money to pay rent. So I pay the rent. What little money I have left is going to feed my addiction. Now you got to remember, I have a lot of fentanyl. I don't really need heroin, but I just continue to do it. And knowing that I'm about to go to prison is just driving me pretty close to insanity. I'm pretty confident that if I go, that my wife's going to take off. Now, somebody had commented and said, after you found that she's basically fucking other guys, she's making Craigslist ads, basically saying that she'll trade sex for a place to live, she has your probation officer's name saved under Aunt Cindy or whatever the hell it was, why'd you still stay with her? And I think that that's a testament to just how much of a fucking idiot I am, or that I'm just really codependent and really scared of being alone. It's very strange. Like, if I wasn't going to prison, if I wasn't completely, debilitated by my addiction at the time, I wouldn't tolerate that. The last few girls I've been with, I've ended the relationship. The last couple before her, before my wife, I've ended those relationships, which is growth for me, because usually it was like this. I just get walked all over, and, they pretty much did what they want just because I had this, almost pathological fear of being alone. All of that was certainly much worse because I was going back to prison. I was just at such a low, I couldn't deal with being alone with that. I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of solitary confinement time that I did in prison. Being by myself in a cell was torturous to me because I had nothing but my own self-loathing and harsh introspection, and those thoughts just drove me to near insanity, honestly. I didn't have any drugs, I didn't have any conduits of warmth like television, music, not even reading or write, none of it. I had push-ups, masturbation, which I hate to say, you can only do so many times in a day. Like, when you're doing it to the point where nothing's coming out, you're like, whoa. Like, I'm in my late 20s and I'm on some, this is like behavior when I was 11, and it's back with a vengeance, doing something wrong in life. It's not normal, especially sober. That's some weirdo shit, But, what else are you going to do when you're by yourself? It would get to the point where I'd be in solitary and I would just have conversations with myself. Like with girls. I'd be like, hey, I'm Ryan. Hey, Ryan. I'm Mandy. Hey, Mandy. Do you want to get finger blasted? I do. And, the guards would come by and be like, Leone, knock the weirdo shit off. And I'd be like, oh. All right, I gotta go, Mandy. Bye. I went crazy in there, though, for real, and it made me more codependent. it gave me separation anxiety, made it very hard for me to be alone. And I think that's what was going on during that period. At the end there, before I went in, I knew I was going to lose her if I went to prison, and I was like desperately trying not to have to add that on to all, a list of things that was already like sending me like incredibly south. So I came up with an idea. I'm like, listen, I'm going to smuggle drugs into prison. I'm going to make enough money doing that I can pay rent, I can keep you, and, we won't lose our apartment. I mean, I already lost my car, totaled it, got the insurance money, blew most of it on drugs, almost blew the rest on gambling, somehow did so well in poker, probably just because JP was so good too. I mean, I'm already good, but like playing with somebody that good and you're playing as teams, you can really do some damage at casinos. Especially with prison aggression, that aggressive style of poker playing is very effective in casinos. I don't know. Some of those Asian dudes though are good. The ones that have like calculators, they're like, hold on, like do some crazy equation, and they're like, I fold. They're like, fuck. Wish I understood numbers as well as those guys do. But for the most part, prison poker is pretty effective. I think I will do a video on that. I might even get it edited so I can like show examples and stuff. But the last couple weeks, I was pretty much in a fentanyl coma. Fentanyl's like that. I mean, if you do enough of it, it's almost like it's almost like insulating. You're like in some sort of crazy bubble. Reality's out here. You're just chilling in this bubble, listening to like 80s music, and like, ooh, yeah, life is not so bad. And like you mix alcohol, heroin, and all the other stuff that I was doing, I lost complete touch of reality. I'm like, I'm going to prison. Who gives a shit? I'm just gonna go in there packing drugs up my ass. Everything's gonna be cool. And she started working. She had been working at this spot like as an executive assistant for some sort of corporation that I think it was in Hollywood. Yeah, it was off Santa Monica Boulevard in Hollywood, right by the shop that Kat Von D works at or whatever. She worked right next to that. So I had a rental car, and I would take her to work, and then I would take her kid to either daycare or school. I don't remember which. And I'd basically just be alone all day, and I would be on the phone. And I started getting pretty suicidal again. I really, even though I was only going to prison for 3 months, I really had a difficult time with that prospect. It was like, I don't know. It was that hopelessness, it was like, I got to that point when I tried to kill myself on Christmas where I just felt like this was never going to end. It was just insanity. It's like, I got sober for 3 years after doing 5 years in prison. Sober for 3 years. Fuck that up. I lose everything. I marry this person that's just, not only does she not love me, she doesn't even like me. Doesn't wear a wedding ring. If I'm not like super vigilant about it, like say single on Facebook, I'm like, hey, it's like some picture of her by herself with like some Hawaiian lay on. She's got like the flowers. She's like, I'm like, what the fuck is this? You don't look married in this. She's like, I don't want people to know I'm married to a drug addict. I'm like, dude, I wrote a book about being a drug addict, and that's why you reached out to me. Sent me a fan letter for the book about me being a fucking drug addict. I mean, that is about a fucking drug addict. There's a spoon on the cover, I'm just like, I think they already know, babe. She's like, oh, I can stand her. Thank God I'm with a sweetheart of a woman now that can actually tolerate me and actually likes me and actually enjoys spending time with me. I am happy at night when I cuddle up with my wife and we watch, porn. But anyhow, that last week was basically making plans to smuggle dope in. you know? And it's very hard when you have a habit to be like, okay, I'm only going to do this much heroin, this much fentanyl. And like, I had to like come up with exactly what I was going to bring in. Now, one thing that's worth a lot of money in jail or in prison that I think is very underestimated is tobacco. You can bring quite a bit of tobacco up your ass, which is called keystering, hooping. You know, it's generally something that you shouldn't do unless there's a purpose. If you get pulled over, if you're going to jail. I always find it weird when I hang out with ex-con friends, you know, where I'm like, dude, you have anything on you? Like, you know, drugs or something? They're like, yeah, fool, I got like 4 grams of black on me. I'm like, sick. Can I see it? And they're like, yeah. And they just like stick their hand in their ass. Like, we're in my house. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Well, you never know, man. You're on parole. I mean, it could come in at any minute. True. Why don't you just put it in like some secret pocket on your crotch? Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. X-ray machines, you know, or whatever. But like, I honestly have, I'm sure that you do too, friends that just hoop drugs for no reason. You know, I mean, you get a little suspicious of dudes like that, you know, and they have like paraphernalia. They're like, yeah, dude, no, I got a meth pipe. It's like fucking this big. It's like with a bulb on it. You're like, oh, damn. But with tobacco, that was one of the things that I was planning. One of the great things about tobacco, or even weed for that matter, doesn't work as well with weed because when you get weed wet, it, you know, obviously takes the potency down. You know, you lose THC crystals that way. I mean, you can't really do it with weed. You can, but it's like pretty pointless, you know? Tobacco, you can take like, you know, we get a bugler pouch. You know, you go buy at the store for like, it's one of those blue pouches. It comes with papers. Get it for like $6-7. Now that's expensive. I mean, when I was a kid, it was like $3. It's like $7 now. But you would get one of those, and like one of the cans that you get for like $40 is worth $1,000 in prison. Pouch is worth like $250. And what you can do is you can get the tobacco wet, and it condenses it. You know, you can pack a lot more tobacco in a balloon or in a condom if it's wet because it condenses it. So you can get like you can literally get 3 pouches. It's $250 a piece, even more than that. I mean, if you're breaking it down, I mean, that little amount like that is $5. So if you can imagine how, in like a pouch, how many little things of tobacco. People just want these little toothpick cigarettes, you know, and they'll pay for it. So I started distracting myself as I'm about to go into prison by, you know, planning on what I'm going to hoop. You know, how much shit can I fit up my ass? You know, definitely tobacco, definitely weed. Heroin is the biggest commodity in there. Suboxone's great, you know. I didn't know that then. I wish I knew how valuable Suboxone. One strip of Suboxone is, you know, I don't know. You know, you guys know how big a strip is. It's like that big, right? 8 milligram strip. In prison nowadays, they're selling Suboxone, and they cut that 8 milligram strip into 32 pieces. 32 pieces for one little strip. Each strip they sell for, each little 32nd of an 8 milligram strip, they sell for $10. So one Suboxone strip is, in theory, worth $320. You can fit like, dude, you can fit hundreds of them up your ass, especially if you're putting it like in wax. I've seen people do it in wax paper, you know, where they'll put a Suboxone, put a piece of wax paper, put more Suboxone, and like you can make like a fat thing that you can jam up your asshole. And you can make thousands and thousands but I didn't know about that then. I didn't realize Suboxone was so valuable. So I'm like still old school at this time. I'm like, okay, definitely got to bring the tobacco, definitely got to bring the heroin, definitely got to bring the, you know, weed. So, you know, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to find somebody that will front me this amount of drugs to be able to bring in. Because in prison, a gram of heroin, and like in California state, a gram of prison is like $150. A gram of black tar heroin in the feds is $400. The reason that it's that expensive is it's a felony tax, you know? State prison, you get caught with like 3 grams of heroin that you're smuggling into jail or into prison, you get like in-house possession. You're looking at like 2 years with half. You'll probably serve like 9 months on that, 10 months, you know, a year or less. The feds, if you get caught with drugs trying to introduce contraband into a penal institution, to a federal penal institution, you're looking at 5 years, mandatory minimum, no matter what, at 87%. They tell you that you do 85% on 5 years in the feds. If you do the math, it's 87%. That's how much time you're doing. They give you like 52 days a year of good time. Nothing. You're gonna serve about 4 years on a 5-year sentence if you get caught bringing anything up your ass. And that's how codependent I was. It wasn't because I was strung out. It's not because it's like I can't bring enough. My habit was ridiculous. I'm doing like 3 or 4 grams a day. I'm doing fentanyl on top of that. I would have to. My suitcase at my ass would have to look like a dinosaur dick. Like there's no way I could bring my habit with me. So the only thing that I had was that I could bring as much as I could and try to save my shitty marriage so that I wouldn't be alone. As suckerish as that sounds, as much as I hate to admit it, I was like really scared of losing her or anybody for that matter because I was already, looking at such a low period in my life. So we will get into how all this stuff got resolved and how my second experience in federal prison was on this violation. I was going to do 90 days, and on a violation you do 100% of that time. We'll get into all of that on the next video. Remember, if you're a Patreon member, $3 the lowest tier. Any tier gets first dibs on the video, so I will put it on that platform first. Once I feel that the vast majority of people have seen it, because I look at the view count, then I put it on the regular platform. This is so that I can support myself, support my family through telling stories, which you guys seem to enjoy. So if you support it, please consider Patreon. I would appreciate it. If you can't do that, I'm very grateful that you're just liking my video, or watching my video. Shit. Kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but if you can like the video, I would certainly appreciate that. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. If each of you can get one person to subscribe, we'll hit that 10,000 mark, and I'll show you my butthole. I'll see you guys next time. Palabra.